Native Americans in Arkansas date back to prehistoric times, starting with the Paleo-Indian era, continuing through the Archaic and Woodland eras, up to the Mississippian era, beginning in or around 8900 to the advent of Spanish explorers in 1540. Each era produced something new. The Mississippian era had technology and economy that changed drastically to a more agricultural angle. Their chiefdoms developed to control the land, trade, and people. And the Native Americans also began recognizing a social hierarchy and a religious hierarchy. For a few minutes, I'm going to speak to you about the Mississippian era Native Americans and how they developed into an agricultural society with chiefdoms and a heightened awareness of their social ranking and religion. Most of all, if not all, of the Native Americans in Arkansas of the Mississippian time period used hoe blades of stone shell and bone scapula. They also used woodworking tools like axes and celt forms, which you have here in front of you. They used these tools to clear forests for construction, for the wood, and to plant their fields. During this era, pottery became a specialized trade, and many are used specifically for trade purposes only. And the artwork on the pottery showed the symbolism of the Native American belief system. Technology was just one aspect of the Native American lifestyle that matured into the Mississippian era. Economy and trade also flourished. During this era, the economy turned from being a mixed, as in an agricultural and a hunting and gathering environment, into a more agricultural-based. They saw the birth of the three sisters, which are corn, beans, and squash. Corn could be produced abundantly, but it did not provide lysine that the people needed, which is an amino acid. So the beans and meats like fish supplemented this and evened out their diet. Controlling the fertile land in the Mississippi Valley was very important, and it would produce conflict over who could control what. This led to the fortification of towns, where they would build clay walls and moats around them. And the social elite would live in them, and the satellite communities would come in during times of war and battle. As trade became more important to these prehistoric communities, occupational specialization emerged, such as salt making, which is important to the agricultural diet because corn and things like that did not have the salt they needed. The trade was controlled by elite leaders. They managed the trade network, and they redistributed the wealth accordingly once they had everything brought back in. Leaders of the Mississippian era of Native American groups developed two types of chiefdoms. One was controlled by a single chief and his elite followers who controlled the trade and redistributed the wealth. Communities that were this chiefdom type, which is type 1, were typically more successful. They were comprised of a very powerful leader and who could extend his power over a vast network of settlements. This type of chiefdom is associated with the Temple Mound settlements, where the chiefdom would distribute the wealth and perform important religious rites. And the housings and ceremonial buildings were controlled. The housing and ceremonial buildings were surrounded by clay walls and moats, as we've discussed before. The second type of chiefdom was more loosely controlled and organized. They had temple mounds surrounded by loosely settled family farmsteads. There was no redistribution of goods. There's no fortifications, no community agriculture. They did have specialized buildings and silos for grain, and there was a compound of leaders instead of a single leader. As you can see from the examples of the different type of chiefdoms, the social hierarchy began to play a very important role for these Mississippian Native Americans. They far surpassed the prior periods of the Woodland and Archaic Indians, and their funerary preparations became more significant. They would bury them with jewelry and weapons to assist them in the afterlife, which was a difference from what they had been doing. High-ranking officials like chiefs would be buried on high mounds on the mortuary sites, and the chiefs led ceremonies that guided the spirits into the spiritual world. With the social hierarchy intact, the people became more concerned with their religious and the spiritual world. Motifs representing amphibians, snakes, and spiders were part of the underworld. They represented destruction and things like that, but it represented also a hopeful future. The bird motifs were represented the upper world, and it was symbolization of continuation and creative power. Only the socially elite warriors could do the dances and the ceremonies to unite the upper and underworld with this world, and that was a very important thing, and it showed social ranking. For the past few minutes, I've talked to you about the Native Americans in Arkansas and the Southeast and the Mississippian era. We've discussed their economy, chiefdoms, and their religious aspects of life. These people were a much advanced group of people for where they were. Their leaders controlled their wealth distribution and led important religious ceremonies. They traded with pottery and developed specialized trade. They began acknowledging leaders or a leader, and they tied their social rankings in with their religion. They were not sophisticated in the ways that the Europeans met them were, but they were in the ways that mattered to them in their culture. Now, are there any questions?
Are they similar to the Egyptians? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of similarities there. I guess it's just the pottery and the.
I think that's just
religion,
an
too.
aspect of that time period.
Why does your body need lapazine?
Yeah,
I
what's
have
that?
no idea. Medical rules. That's a
really?
That's a
We should
medical
know.
question.
I guess
It's
it's
an
probably-
amino acid that you have to
I think
have.
it's a protein. Then.
Yeah, it's a protein that they don't
That's
get.
why
They couldn't get from corn.
beans and meat for the protein.
If they did have different chieftains, were they like over certain things?
Yes, the one single chief would be. We're good.
You sure? Should I turn it off?
Yes.